Our Danube Stories. Sophia Beiter. Imagine it's 1953. Europe is still deeply scarred by the horrors of the Second World War, and the continent finds itself on the brink of the Cold War between East and West. Yet even then, some already understood the importance of the Danube region for the development of a peaceful, unified and prosperous Europe in the future. Back then, Austrian diplomat and politician Theodor von Hornbostel founded the Research Institute for Issues of the Danube region in Salzburg. Since then, a lot has changed for the institute. It moved to Vienna, changed its name to Institute for the Danube Region and Central Europe, IDM, and widened its scope to a total of 19 countries. Now, with Friedrich Faulhammer as chairman and successor of Erhard Busek, Sebastian Schäffer as IDM director, and a growing international team of research associates, we are engaging in projects, events, and publications in and about our target region. In 2023, we were celebrating our 70th anniversary. For our institute, the countries along the Danube are both the subject of our research as well as cooperation partners. On the occasion of our anniversary, we were looking back at the eventful history of this region, the river and its people. And we wanted to know what the Danube means to you. As part of the challenge #MyDanubeStory, people shared with us their experiences, stories and thoughts, and told us how the fluctuations of history in the Danube region have touched their life. The result is this little book with 16 of the best stories we have received, each telling a unique story about the currents of life along the Danube. The reader can find personal travel reports about journeys on the Danube by boat, by Kamila Bogdanova and Jack Gill, or through the Danube region by train, by Lucas de Corne, as well as stories about the struggles of generations living at the shores of the river, by Iris Beatrix Öse and Mirko Savkovic. Others stayed further back into history. Ethne Bradley takes us behind the Iron Curtain, Christopher Radovici tells how Sovietization turned a region into two countries, and Nate Simebay writes about the fate of the Danube Swabians. The book also includes stories of the Danube as a symbol for starting something new by Rebecca Thorne and Gabrielle Smith-Luha. Daniel Martinak explains how the Danube flows through his daily work and life, while Peter Techet can feel the river's influence even at the Adriatic Sea. Irina Ashcraft and Olena Babi try to grasp the essence of the Danube, and some of the authors even dare a look to the future of Europe, Sebastian Schäffer and Anna Böhler. The stories show how diverse the role of the Danube can be in history and in our personal lives. It is sometimes a border that divides or one to overcome. It can be a place of longing and escape or a new beginning. Always fluid, continuously flowing, regardless of wars, personal victories and failures. And the stories also show that the Danube can unite disparate parts to become one diverse whole. In the future, I hope that the Danube will continue to be just that, a connecting element between lives, friends, generations, peoples and countries. Our Donau, Dunaj, Duna, Dunav, Dunarea, Dunaj.
Bridge Between Two Worlds by Daniel Martinek. No steep slopes below Visegrad Castle, no blue tower of the picturesque town of Dürnstein, no reflections of the majestic Esztergom Cathedral. Just a typical road and rail bridge, with a historical identity matching hundreds of other bridges in Europe. Yet different and exceptional, at least for me. This ordinary bridge represents a symbol of my recent remarkable experience, the story of my last years, the bond between my seemingly distant worlds. Two massive green metal snakes crawling side by side allow me to cross the river so many times, the Danube Bridge in Tulln in Lower Austria. Having lived in Vienna for more than 5 years, I realized only in the last few months that I could not even count how many times I crossed the mighty Danube thanks to this bridge. Either while commuting between my residence in Vienna and visiting my family and friends in Czechia, or during the countless trips I took with my girlfriend. But this is not about our car trips or train travels. With each crossing, a new chapter of my story in Austria's capital was written. Another stage of my personal and professional transformation recorded in the book of my life. But behind all this, there is still something more, a clash of two worlds existing in parallel on both shores. The rigidity of a small village clashing with the dynamics of a city. The liberalism of urban environment with the conservatism of rural area. The cosmopolitanism of international colleagues confronted with the provincialism of some Czech friends. Two worlds so seemingly far apart, yet mingling within me. Coming from a village near the brewing city of Pilsen in western Bohemia, I would have never imagined that the Danube River and its surrounding region would affect me in such a profound way as it has over the past years. My involvement at the Institute for the Danube Region and Central Europe, IDM, the Danube Rectors Conference, DRC, and the EU Strategy for the Danube Region, EUSDR, hints to the fact that the river flowed actually through my daily work and formed the rapids of my life. But the Thun Bridge was still standing there, as a personal reminder, as a professional recapitulation, as an arbitrary reality check. It always performed its role, as befits the bridge. It connected my two worlds, the perfectly explored microcosm of my childhood and the adult world of the known unknown. Such an intersection of two worlds has its great transformative power. It is like routinely crossing a bridge while not realizing the river below moves you forward, shapes you, defines your personality, determines your mental map. And just as a river finds its way through a rugged landscape and changes its course over time, so too does man shift with the challenges of life. Suddenly, a new bridge needs to be built. A bridge bringing another stream of experiences. A bridge guaranteeing the continuity of a life's path. A bridge connecting different realities. A bridge between two worlds. O Danube, my muse, by your waters I have grown. In the heart of Europe, where cultures unite, a journey profound as life has shown. In your embrace I have found my delight.
Cold Waters by Rebecca Thorne. Tomorrow's teenager, still small and high-pitched, scoots past me as I walk along the river embankment. He has known this place for as long as he can remember, has grazed his knee on the gravel, a brief calamity, now long forgotten, and catapulted himself into the fluid wetness. It is the map of his short life, and surely the forever of his future. He can't imagine anything or anywhere else as tangible as the Danube. I walk on. With his shoulders hunched in an undersized suit jacket, yesterday's youth cuts across my path and frowningly searches for answers in the upside-down reflection of the island. So recently, he had spent careless summer days throwing frisbees on the narrow strip of land between the Danube and its lanky arm. But those days are over. Now he must pretend to be an adult. Not far from me, a lady of a certain age, who can't quite believe she belongs to today with its wrinkles and greying beauty, sits with legs stretched out on a bench and face turned towards the watery, rippling shimmer. She likes it here because the weak, late autumn sun shines not only from above, but also from below, and there is still a suggestion of warmth. And I? Where do I belong in this relentlessly rushing timeline? The rivers of my youth are not the Danube. They flow through countries that are separated from this one by sea and mountains, places that are apart and choose to distance themselves yet further. I have known tributaries of this mighty waterway, but the Danube is new to me. Walking past these generations of people so familiar with their river, I am inundated with emotions that I struggle to name. Longing, perhaps, or loneliness. An irrational part of me is jealous that these people can call the Danube their home, that they have the certainty of past and present and future entrenched in this region, to my imagining at least. I want to see my story reflected in the inky waters, liquid words that pour into eternity. I want to be part of the history that courses through Vienna. I go down to the river, onto the jetty. The wind whips my hair into my face and a few rust-coloured leaves stream past me. Ignoring the chill and the curious looks, I get changed. 1 foot. It is cold, but it doesn't hurt yet. And anyway, today I will be brave. 2 feet. Ankles, calves, thighs. Now it becomes more challenging. The water reaches my stomach, and each centimetre requires an effort of will. It would be easier to go all at once, I think, and count myself in. 3, 2, 1. There is a split second where I feel nothing, and then comes the shock of the cold. I experience a flood of feeling, or is it pain? My breath, when I resurface, is short and sharp and requires concentration. A reminder of what it is to be alive and here and now. I swim. Small, uncertain strokes at first, testing these new waters, and then more confidently, drawing great arcs with my arms and stretching my legs into the unknown, and my story joins the torrent of others in and on and by the river Danube.
Venus of Willendorf by Ethna Bradley. When I was a child, my mother would tell us stories about people like us, but not quite, who lived along the banks of the prehistoric Danube. They stood shorter than us, with their thick brows and barrel chests against the Ice Age cold. Did they speak like us, I wondered? Had my ancestors looked into their eyes and seen intelligence there, or a dullness like an animal's? Theirs was a world of intractable forest, split only by the great arterial rivers on which our ancestors, their rivals, sailed their canoes. I snuggled closer to my mother as I imagined the walls of ice that only ended in the Alps, their cold breath sweeping over the landscape where mammoths roamed. My mother longed to go to the dig sites along the river, but half lay behind the Iron Curtain, and half beyond an even more insurmountable wall, 3 children and a mortgage to pay. Still, the names were enough to paint that vanished world: Aurignation, Dolní Věstonice, Pestera, Willendorf. I would find her reading the latest archaeological journals with their colour palettes of painted caves and sharp-edged tools. Years later, my mother flew to meet me in Bratislava. She touched the window as the train started for Vienna, saying, "All of this was there all along." She meant the murals of strapping workers, the fields and the factories alike, and those dig sites, now European Union funded and neatly fenced off. In the Natural History Museum, we huddled around the Venus of Willendorf. The little statue was spotlit, light shining on her creamy curves. Head bowed, arms demurely held over her chest, she could have been a goddess or the most ordinary every woman. "She's 40,000 years old," my mother whispered to me. There had been hands that had held that little statue, I thought. They had judged the right angle to strike the mammoth ivory and how much to polish the surface. They had appraised it with eyes that saw art just as I did, in the swell of the statue's knees, in her exaggerated proportions. Gazing at the statue, I found I was thinking about that vanished world again, The same pair of hands that had carved the Venus had also touched the rough bark of trees long dead, had scooped up water from a Danube both like and unlike the one that I crossed on my commute every day. Their eyes had seen blue skies devoid of jet trails, and nights so abundantly starry that they could hunt by that light alone. And perhaps they had seen our cousins, the other people, now only a ghost in our DNA. My mother and I murmured to one another in low voices, marvelling at the complexity of the headdress, the smoothness of the legs, how she had survived for so long, marvelling at the fact that after so many years my mother was here, and that we would shortly take a train over to the ghost of the Iron Curtain, to those sights. And behind us, a couple on a day trip from Brno grew impatient.
Träumen von der Freude von Anna Böhler. Die Donau. Das war für mich lange vorrangig, das manchmal einen etwas abgestandenen Geruch verströmende, grünliche Band, in das der Badesteg des Wiener Arbeiterstrandbades hineinragt. Der Strom ist so breit, man hört ihn nicht fließen. Höchstens die Altwiener Straußenfantasie davon, die jedes neue Jahr einleitet. Man denkt nicht viel an die Donau. Jahre später komme ich um 4 Uhr nachts übermüdet in Belgrad an. Es ist finster, aber über der Donau schwimmen noch blinkende Lichter und Musik weht zu mir herüber. Ich trotte am dunklen Quai entlang, starre mit trägen Augen auf die sanft schimmernde Fläche, deren schwacher Glanz all den Schmutz verbirgt, der sich in der Tiefe sammelt. Auch hier ist sie breit und mächtig, auch hier umwachsen von saftigem Grün, quirligem Leben und alten Geschichten. Damals habe ich erst langsam begriffen, dass meine Heimatstadt mit dem Osten, dem die Donau zustrebt, über ein dichtes Netz an neuen und alten Fäden verbunden ist. In der Jugend war mir dieser Umstand nicht bewusst. Man interessierte sich für Großbritannien und die USA. Niemanden zog es nach Rumänien oder Bosnien. Das waren quasi vergessene Landstriche für uns. Irgendwo in Rumänien, das wusste ich bloß, hatte mein Großvater seine Kamera vergraben, ehe er dort in russische Gefangenschaft ging. Ich kannte den Osten Europas nur aus seinen Geschichten. Fremde Orte, an denen unendliche Schrecken geschehen waren. Einmal sagte mein Großvater dann am Ende seiner Erzählung, deshalb habe ich im 94er Jahr dann mit Ja gestimmt, damit das alles nicht noch einmal passieren kann. Ich weiß nicht, ob er sich als Europäer bezeichnet hätte, aber in jedem Fall als Mensch, der das Erobern und Erobertwerden in Europa gerne für die Zukunft abgeschafft hätte. Eines der Grundziele, mit dem durch die Geschichte und alle Verwerfungen hindurch immer wieder leise und lautere Stimmen angetreten sind. So der große, wehmütige Nostalgiker des Vielvölkerstaates der Habsburger Monarchie, Josef Roth, der in seiner Kapuzinergruft schrieb: Freilich sind es die Slowenen, die polnischen und ruthenischen Galizianer, die Kaftanjuden aus Borislav, die Pferdehändler aus der Baschka, die Moslems aus Sarajevo, die Maroni-Brater aus Mostar, die Gott erhalte singen. Die österreichische Substanz wird genährt von den Kronländern. Diese Substanz bestand für Roths Helden im Wesentlichen aus dem vereinenden, den auseinanderstrebenden Nationalismen entgegengestellten Element der Monarchie mit all ihren Schwächen. Die Möglichkeit, mit nur geringen Beschränkungen die diversen Landstriche durchqueren und mit Menschen verschiedenster Hintergründe relativ friedlich unter einem gemeinsamen Überbau leben zu können, war in diesem Staatswesen zumindest theoretisch angelegt. Auch die Europäische Union stellt kein perfektes Gebilde dar. Doch allein die Möglichkeit und auch schon teilweise Verwirklichung dieses traumhaften Zustandes könnten doch Ansporn genug sein, weiterhin an ihr zu arbeiten. Denn wie unerhört schön wäre es, wenn man vielleicht in einer für uns noch erlebbaren Zukunft Donauauf wie abwärts und über die Zuflüsse dieses Flusses hinaus mit Inbrunst die Ode an die Freude singen würde.
My first journey along the Danube. Lucas Descornes. My Danube story could have started as early as 2019, but due to the pandemic, I had to wait 3 long years before finally beginning my adventure in the Danube region. My high school friends and I won an interrail pass when we turned 18 years old. We were planning to go to Central Europe, but unfortunately our trip got delayed by a few years. When the time came, only my best friend and I, from that group of friends, were still willing to explore the region. We decided not to plan our trip too much in advance and take things as they come, going from city to city to explore offbeat cultures and from town to town to explore the breathtaking nature the region has to offer. We first departed from our secluded village in the Picardy region and headed to Paris. Subsequently, we embarked on a new adventure towards Vienna. We briefly stopped in Zurich, where the water of the river Limmat is turquoise and limpid. Then we hopped into a train to Austria's capital city, crossing charming lakes and mountains. After a long journey and a night of tranquil slumber, my friends and I started exploring Vienna. We were stunned by the Baroque-style architecture of the city and its atmosphere. Serendipitously strolling through the city, we unexpectedly stumbled upon the Danube River for the very first time. We marked the occasion by savoring an iconic Wiener Schnitzel, paired with a refreshing local beer by the water's edge. After immersing ourselves in this lovely city for a few days, we embarked on a train journey. Destined to unveil the enchantment of Prague, we arrived early in the morning, greeted by the tranquil whispers of a waking city. The first light of dawn painted the sky of the monument's facades. Afterwards, we took a long and pleasant walk along the Vladva River, which was enlivened by a local market where we sampled traditional food. After visiting the city center and its best-known monuments from top to bottom, we paused at museums like time travelers, unraveling the Czech Republic's captivating history. Each exhibit took us back in time, where the past intertwined with the world that we know today. We later enjoyed the capital's nightlife and tasted what was to become our favorite delicacy of the trip, the Tredelnik. Our voyage led us next to Budapest, the final chapter of our journey before going back home. During our short stay in Hungary, we witnessed a national festival and enjoyed the vibrant atmosphere along the Danube, embraced by enchanting architecture. We grasped the capital's cultural diversity in the Great Market Hall, where food and smells intertwine. With our experience reaching its zenith, we embarked on the train homeward bound, carrying the essence of our journey in our hearts. We finally made it back to Paris, 3 weeks later, as if we had just left Paris the other day, with the yearning to set forth once more to explore the rest of the Danube region, and perhaps to write a new chapter of our Danube story.
The river Mirko Savkovic. The river in front of me was the only outstanding feature of the environment that was grabbing my attention. The surrounding Pannonian fields, vineyards, and villages lined up their unexceptional humble patterns in interchangeable and tedious sequences. After a long time, I felt an unusual sensation of the absence of anxiety. My eyes, my river, my comfort, my peace. My brain resembled that weird bug able to float on the surface of water. Water was everywhere. I remember my grandpa telling me how a boat cannot be sunken by the water surrounding it, only by water inside of it. Or was it maybe Tom Hanks in that movie? I will never know for certain. It was late, I was tired. A small TV was on in the living room. Be it as it may, I wish it was my grandpa who coined it. This river in front of me is the unacknowledged destiny of all of us. It is a highway of human migration, liquid tower of Babel, the holy goddess of fertility and heartless monster. Ghosts in the ruins of the hotel named after the river silently sing sagas about glorious and shameful pasts. Waves on the surface present unusual yet familiar broken images, a window into the past or the future, incomplete fractions of the miraculous natural museum. One day they will build a bridge here over the river. One day nobody will care about this border. One day nobody will fight about it. The river will look the same as today, absolutely indifferent. Yet I know that the magical river creatures that live just below the surface will preserve the memory of everyone who perished. They will remember my grandfather, who daydreamed about poppy fields on the opposite bank of the river. Ages ago, long before I ever met him, he swam across the mighty river. He was a brave young man. Or maybe it was some story he prepared just for me. My crazy old clown playing violin, brave horse rider, and grumpy mechanic. I know that mermaids, horrified and hardened by everything they saw, will keep my tiny precious memory. Enough to feel light in my weak body. Enough to enjoy a late autumn sun. Enough to drink coffee and hedonistically think about quince compote I haven't had since the last year. Yes, they will build bridge just for me, right here. One day. I just have to be more patient than my grandpa.
Danube Swabians and One Chandelier. Nata Simebai. Once upon a time, land on the upper parts of the Danube River was pricey. Hard-working folks resided in their own area, but they couldn't afford the land. They were told that they would find decent land and would not be forced to join the army. As a result, they sailed down the Danube on boats to the south of Hungary. However, the terrain was not suitable. The land was swampy and difficult to cultivate. They repented and many of them died of malaria. However, they did not give up. They made canals and worked hard every day. Their perseverance paid off as they gradually transformed the marshy land into fertile fields. With their relentless efforts, they were able to build prosperous lives for themselves and their families. And the Danube was flowing. This river brought something new to each generation. And decades passed, and people got mixed up. Different languages and different religions in Vojvodina. The war has come. Germany lost, and all Danube Swabians were collectively declared enemies by the new communist government and expelled from the land they had adapted to. Only skilled craftsmen are allowed to stay. As always, there are no winners or losers in war. Humanity is always lost. The atrocities committed during the war left a lasting scar on the region, with the Danube serving as a haunting reminder of the lives lost. The pain and suffering experienced by Serbs, Jews, and Roma communities still resonate to this day, reminding us of the tragic consequences of hatred and conflict. The expulsion of the Danube Swabians from Vojvodina caused a deep sense of loss and displacement among the community. Many had to leave behind their homes, belongings, and even loved ones. The Danube remembered the Danube Swabians. The Danube continued to flow. And just as the land had been promised to them once upon a time, highlanders from Bosnia's hilly regions were also promised that a Vojvodina paradise awaited them on earth and in the homes taken from the Swabians. And those highlanders came, but they repented also. They soon realized that the promised paradise was nothing more than a shattered dream. The once vibrant houses left behind by the Danube Swabians now stood empty and dilapidated, a stark reminder of broken promises and unfulfilled hopes. The water in their homes stank. Everything was as flat as a pan. All the houses were the same. They couldn't find their way around at night, and they had no idea how to utilize equipment. They did not, however, give up. The 8th offensive was started. 7 passed, thus the 8th must have been overcome as well. A spectacular chandelier hanging in one of the mansions. It was bought a long time ago for a girl for her 11th birthday. The descendants, filled with nostalgia and longing, returned to the mansion that held their ancestors' memories after many years. They offered a generous sum of money to the current owner in exchange for the chandelier, hoping to preserve a piece of their heritage. Neighbors and friends pleaded with him to hand over the chandelier. He didn't want to hear it at all. He stated that the chandelier was not for sale. Over time, though, circumstances changed and the owner had a change of heart, deciding to sell it. Yet, by then, the Danube Swabians answered, "Now we don't need it." Because the Danube did not stop flowing and did not stop remembering.
The Thrill of Crossing Over by Gabrielle Smith Luha. Rivers are sometimes impassable borders, too wide, too deep, too strong. For 5 centuries, the Danube served as the northernmost border of the Roman Empire, the line not to cross. A moving force of dark water pushing its deep chasm through plains and forests, cutting through mountains, and weaving always towards the Black Sea. This is the line where armies camp but don't go further. Too wide, too deep, too strong. This is the line we do not cross. How many young soldiers looked over to the other side and wondered about the unknown? But one day you set out to cross this river. You are not a Roman soldier. You are a woman who lives in Prague, long after the Romans. You have been too many years in a painful marriage. You pack your bags. Not much. You don't need much. You want to be free. Folding your dresses carefully in your suitcase. Your heart contracting. You're not even sure if you're breathing. Some paintings, some plants, your dresses, and 2 cats. You put them all in your car and drive that rainy day towards the Danube. You don't look back. Your car nears the edges of Vienna. You see its scattered skyscrapers sticking up in the plains. You see Kallenberg on the hill above the river. You are in traffic, moving slowly. You come to the bridge. You see the river. Today it is fast, dark, and gray, moving as a determined mass always towards the Black Sea. This is your moment. You hold steady on the wheel, eyes forward, heart forward. The cars on the bridge speed up, and so do you. All of you go over the water together. You are reaching into the unknown. You are moving into your new life. You can't help but smile. You are not a Roman soldier. You are not one of those who stopped at the Danube. You make it to the other side. It was not too fast. It was not too deep. It was not too strong. You did it. The Danube sparkles a little behind you as you make your way to your new home in Vienna.
Reflections on a Day in Bratislava by Jack Gill. I would like to tell my story of a boat trip I took to Bratislava, the Slovak capital, from my home in Vienna. The high-speed twin-city liner that connects Vienna and Bratislava takes approximately 75 minutes from start to finish. Setting sail from Vienna's Donau Canal, the boat slowly meanders past Vienna's high-rise towers and onto the open Danube, where it speeds up to around 60 kph. As we race along the river, I imagine how the Habsburg monarchs must have felt as they sailed into their other realms along the river. The Danube really was the Habsburg River. After a windy but wonderful view of the lower Austrian countryside, we dock in Bratislava. At first glance, one sees the impressive castle on top of the hill, Bratislavský hrad, typical of many medieval European cities. Bratislava, known as Pressburg in German and Pozsony in Hungarian, is typical in this respect, and such landmarks are constant reminders of the history of conflict in Europe. Bratislava is very much a city of contrasts, with its classical old town and communist and post-communist era buildings. As we stroll through the charming old town, we come across the facade of an old pharmacy whose name is written in Slovak, German and Hungarian, a reminder of the city's cosmopolitan history, but also domination by other more powerful neighbours. It fills me with a sense of contentment that the peoples of Central Europe have, in my lifetime, achieved so much. Democracy, the rule of law, human rights, economic development, and educational opportunities symbolize most powerfully in Slovakia's achievement of membership in the European Union and NATO. And despite some political dramas, in Slovakia I get a sense that it all worked out in the end. From my own childhood, I'm reminded of the 1980s James Bond film, The Living Daylights, where Bond, in typical charismatic fashion, must extract a defecting Soviet military general from Bratislava, then behind the Iron Curtain, to the safety of Austria. It's truly amazing how much has changed in the space of one generation, as now such a situation would be unthinkable. Upon reflection, I remember how thankful I am to live in these times of such unprecedented peace, prosperity, cooperation and friendship between the nations of Europe.
No Lighthouse on the Other Side of History by Radovich Christopher. Around the 50s, the Danube was a mosaic of waves which never hit the shore, where World War II scars intertwined with Cold War uncertainties. In Galatz, a city nestled amongst its curvatures, the Hajduk family found its roots since borderless time. Liliana Hajduk, a woman with unyielding courage and compassion, spent her days caring for her husband Razvan, whose eyes now carried the weight of a tore-down war banner, and their son, in a modest home. Their lives simply unveiled slowly against the backdrop of Danube's ceaseless flows, with the breeze serving as a gentle reminder of the sand that was lost and stories it carried. Vis-a-vis, a river too far away across the verdant expanse of newly imagined Bessarabia, a different story surfaced. Liliana's parents carried their wisdom on a land once full of vitality and tradition, witnessing how the Red Bear's grip began to engrave itself into the nation. Today a bit, tomorrow a lot, until the Sovietization became a dam against the very soul of its people, shredding them piece by piece. In this amalgamation of chained freedoms, the Haiduks could only escape the regime's gaze through a sporadic field of black rose, so close yet so distant. One somber evening, As the sun dipped into the red horizon's water, Liliana received one of these tiny marbles, worn down by the hands it passed. The carvings were from her parents, but the seeds of meaning seemed to be drowned by disheartening terror's weight. A true Golgotha was painted with every comma, portraying the faceless Soviet atrocities, with every new death row embroidering the region's fabric. The mill's wheel passively turned, and the Haiduk's effort to send even the slightest hope across the dreadful blue abyss seemed to get lost in the maze of oppression tactics. The pages of The Other Shore, bridging these communities since the Willow can remember, were filled with a chasm of anguish. During this storm, the family found anchor in the memory of bountiful dinners, where every member had his place at the wooden table, right across the shared joys and sorrows of uneventful days. When the sky tucked itself into smoky chimneys, with their sun putting constellations across a tree, a knock echoed through. On the doorstep stood a stranger, with a nutcracker uniform. In his pouch, a letter from one of their neighbors in Bessarabia, now a solitary monolith standing guard over a community of flowers and candles. As the clock struck this time, the blank snow contained 3 tiny voids, a cascade which filled Liliana. They have disappeared. Knowing what it's like to be caught in the regime's clogs, she clung to the letter, her tears blurring the inked shadows of unfathomable suffering. One meager drop into the river of tears. The Danube, once a gateway into the Black Sea's unknown, and Europe's heart, now felt like a dormant guard, an unmovable leviathan shattering destinies. Lighthouses without boats, and boats without sails. Decades passed, and galas molded in the metallic modernity, with the family standing still. A story of loved ones became just whispered legends. Yet, Danube's hushed calm might also wash sorrows, carrying away into forever the stories of all forgotten heroes in the crowd. Nowadays, their testament portrays what happens when borders float on the map of interest as a region turned into 2 countries. Even amidst the horrors, the currents of hope can never be extinguished.
My Danube poem, Olena Babi. What can I say about the Danube River? Well, Wikipedia gave me some facts. The river starts in Germany and flows into the Black Sea in Romania and Ukraine. Its length is 2,961 kilometers. It is the second largest river in Europe. In ancient times it was called Istros. It helped the Roman Empire to keep the borders. The Celtic name of the river translates as fast water, and so on. Facts. But those facts can be simpler yet romantic, even poetic, I guess. So I wrote a poem about the Danube River. It took me several hours to dig in and search through the internet, learning about the river, reading articles, paragraphs, and all of that just to write a simple, rhymed poem about a river. Why? Because I love poetry, and I felt the inspiration while I was reading through the stories of other authors here. I felt that I also want to write something authentic and sincere. And the sincerest form to me is poetry. So, in ancient Greece there was a man, historian, I might say. He wrote his stories, a deal so huge still counts these days. The Danube was an Istros there. It's matured, old and wise, as if it was embodiment of greatest river gods. In times of Roman emperors, the Danube was frontier. It held the mightiness of those and helped to live, per se. Through centuries of fasts and grief, the river witnessed all, the nation's rise, the bloom of life and terror of the war. So long and wide, serene flows, the Danube still remains. The emerald waters run so deep you cannot look away. It helped to build, it helped to grow, to keep in peace, to be. Wherever you might need to go, the river takes you here. connecting countries, cities, lives, the Danube made his deal. Across the ages, old and wise, it counts greatly, still.
The Danube, Escape Route of Destiny. Written by Iris Beatrix Öse. Theresia, 27, 1938, Neudeutsch, Hungary. Either you allow me to return home, or I join the Creator through the Danube. I knelt in front of my mother, holding her wrinkled hands. Get up, dearest. Give yourself time to appreciate how lucky you are. An excellent husband by your side and part of an honorable family. But I will never love them the way I love you, I cried. Sweetheart, winter is coming, and there are more pressing concerns than love. Someone needs to keep you warm and nourished if we cannot. I argued that I didn't need anyone to provide for me, but to closed ears. Thus unheard, I wrote a letter for posterity. I quit as a maid, yet as a country housewife my servitude continued. My husband is a ruler. He expects gratitude, while he is ignorant and absent. I struggle to raise his ward as my own. In this family, I'm a stranger, an outsider, an intruder. My home and my heart are entwined. The home is the prison, wherein my heart is being strangled. At sunset, I walked along the Danube. The whisper of the wind in the willow trees and the splashing waves filled me with bliss. Finally, I was my own woman, free and careless, unafraid of stepping into the ice-cold water. I looked to the sky and pleaded, Lord, I don't want to be taken care of anyone but you. Please, give me shelter and peace, and never let me wake up from that dream. Iris, 24, 2023, Vienna, Austria. The splashing waves perfectly mirrored the dark clouds. The deep blue of the Danube almost merged with the October sky. Jogging along the river bank, in the whispering wind, a sudden thought struck me. 85 years ago, Theresia, the wife of my great-grandfather, took her life in this very river. I felt her anger in the howling winds, her struggle in the wild waves, her voiceless scream in its death. As a young woman enjoying a dazzling array of choices, it is hard to comprehend what made Theresia give up everything. What held her back from escaping? Shame? Money? Fear? The indifference of others? Theresia probably cared for so many, yet no one treated her the way she deserved. A thin ray appeared on the river, highlighting the waves. Why did Theresia fail to see any light in the darkness? or the beauty within her? What could her life have been? I began to understand how our fates are encoded in the past, and that my existence was a consequence of her death. If she hadn't taken her life so painfully early, my great-grandfather would have never married again. I would never have been born. Dear Theresia, I would have loved to hold your hand to lead you out of the cold water. I'm unable to change the past, but I promise you, I will live the life your choice gave me and give my very best.
Peter Techet, Flow of Ambiguities. In the coffee house, you can find Viennese melange, Hungarian goulash soup, Slovenian bread, and people enjoy their spritz just like in Central Europe. Wine with soda, called gemischt, a German word written in Croatian. The spoken languages are Italian, occasionally Slovenian, and the older ladies and gentlemen appreciate it when someone speaks German. They may not speak much German themselves, but they feel Austrian. From Via San Francesco it is not far to the water. It's not the Danube, but the Adriatic Sea. However, in Trieste, the Danube still flows in many hearts. Claudio Magris, a Germanist from this city, wrote possibly the most beautiful travel guide about the Danube. Often sitting here is Marco, or as he calls himself, Marcus. He explains his city in the best Viennese dialect. He, the descendant of a Venetian noble family, wants to represent the Slovenian minority, and he still refers to Vienna as the capital. In Trieste, there are more identity constellation and identity collisions than the city has residents. Slovenian Catholics who love Italy, Italian communists who long for Yugoslavia, Habsburg nostalgics who vote for Italian nationalists in elections. This is Central Europe, as the Austrian historian Moritz Czarki wrote, a laboratory for mixed identities, ambiguities, contradictions, and opposites. It is the space where either or clarity does not prevail, but, as Robert Musil described Kakanian, there is a constant both and option, sometimes the less friendly neither nor. It is the part of Europe where the greatest Hungarian poet, Sándor Petőfi, was originally a Slovak and Serbian, where the greatest Italian irredentist, Guillermo Oberdan, came from a German-speaking family, where a German-speaking Jewish author called himself a Swabian Italian, Italo Svevo, and where a Viennese anti-Semitic German nationalist professor, Taras Borodajkevich, had a Polish name. Logic needs to be found here. It is no longer the realm of clear categories and unequivocal decisions. Everything is possible. Post-Habsburg Central Europe was postmodern before it was cool. Even the Danube is not a geographical category here. It does not flow where it is indicated on the map, but connects people, cities, and landscapes that are not situated along the Danube. What separates them here is so common that it ultimately brings them together.
A Journey Through Time and Space, Kamila Bogdanova. As a child, I was always enchanted by stories of far-off lands and adventures. The idea of a grand river flowing through multiple countries and cultures was a concept that held a special place in my heart. Little did I know that the Danube River would become the backdrop for one of the most unforgettable experiences of my life. It was a crisp autumn morning when I found myself standing at the riverbank in Budapest, Hungary. The sun cast a warm, golden glow over the city's iconic parliament building as it reflected on the gentle ripples of the Danube. I was in awe of the grandeur of this majestic waterway which had witnessed centuries of history. My journey along the Danube began with a leisurely boat ride. The Danube flowed calmly, and as we glided along its surface, I marveled at the architectural splendor of Budapest with its ornate bridges connecting Buda and Pest. The river served as a silent witness to the struggles and triumphs of Hungary's history, and its banks were lined with stories waiting to be told. As we sailed upstream, the landscape gradually changed. The picturesque Hungarian countryside unfolded before me, with quaint villages, rolling hills, and vineyards dotting the landscape. It felt like a living postcard, and I couldn't help but be reminded of the countless travelers who had taken this very route before me. My journey continued through Slovakia, Austria, and Germany. Each country had its unique charm, and the riverbanks transformed with the changing cultures and landscape. In Vienna, I was serenaded by the music of Strauss and Mozart, whose melodies seemed to dance upon the water. One of the most memorable stops on my Danube adventure was in the charming town of Dürnstein, Austria. Nestled amidst terraced vineyards, this little gem had a timeless quality that took me back in time. I sampled local wines and strung along cobblestone streets, feeling as though I had stepped in a fairy tale. As I ventured deeper into the heart of Europe, I found myself in the historic city of Regensburg, Germany. Its medieval architecture and winding streets were a testament to the enduring spirit of the past. The Danube, with its steady flow, was the silent observer of the city's evolution. My journey eventually led me to the Danube's confluence with the mighty Rhine River, and I bid farewell to this enchanting waterway. The memories of my Danube adventure remain etched in my heart, a testament to the beauty and diversity of Europe as seen through the eyes of a river. The Danube River is not just a waterway, it's a guide, a storyteller, and a companion on my journey through time and space. It showed me the rich tapestry of cultures and histories that wove together along its banks, leaving an indelible mark on my soul. It was a journey that I would carry with me for a lifetime, a reminder that the world's greatest stories are often written by the rivers that flow through it.
How Can You Know This River by Irina Ashcraft. How can you know the water, who she is, and where she begins? Everything we map and measure, those are merely human things. And the river we think we know, the one we call the Danube, she dreams far different dreams. Your school books didn't tell you, but the poets know the secret and will share it only once. Here, hush, listen closely. Who doesn't listen now will miss it, or who doesn't have a poet's heart. The river we call Danube rises softly, night by night, drop by drop, into a realm of vapor and cloud, imperceptible to us. She sneaks away while we sleep. She travels by starlight along currents in the sky to drop, drop by drop, in some other place where the people there give her another name, Nile, Amazon, Mekong. Or she flows free to lands where another you and another I will call her softly by a different song, Ardonau, Dunai, Duna, Dunav, Dunarea, Dunai,
We'll weave her name into our lullabies. Our best symphonies will play her waltz. We'll call her by the name we gave her, but she will never turn around. We think we know her because we know her miles, her depths, her curves. We point to those wide and gushing currents and say, this side will be mine and that will be yours for as long and long as history replays itself. And for it, we will fight wars. And here's the line where your cities shall begin, and here's the line where the land shall be ours. We say we know her, the Danube, because we memorized the map, because we dug up ancient treasures, distant traces of other lives lived long ago from her muddy shores. And we'll pass the exam if we can say who conquered this portion or that, who sailed great ships along her waves, which important battles were fought along her banks, and which important people died. But the river doesn't stop for that. The river never will. You can recite all the facts, say that she begins and ends in black. Black forest to black sea. You can claim she surges past 10 countries in their current states. You can count the castles and fortresses, reminisce about fortunes and empires, create policies and compose histories of trade and peace and warfare. You can harness her for electric power, build cities on her banks, say she drives whole economies, but you still won't understand the depths that she contains. Maybe ask the long ago dreamers who knew her by more than name, whose very sweat and tears and stories were the river's own. Ask the Vincha what they felt as the morning sunlight touched her pale blue waves, or the Romans what adventure called beyond her every bend. Ask the banded demoiselle what her backwaters reveal, or the sandpiper what he feels as he glides above her shores. Or leave the books behind and go, by moonlight, by bike, to her nearest sparkling shore. Leave the facts you mistook for feeling behind and begin to listen, and you will know. Slip into a quiet eddy and feel the water slowly rise to touch your thighs, your belly, your hair as it floats. Let the river hold you and whisper who she is. Become as free as she always has been. There is this and only this.
The Second River of European Integration by Sebastian Scheffer. Herr Busek called the Danube the second river of European integration. After the German-French reconciliation along the Rhine, the Danube was to become a scene of peaceful coexistence of people along the river. For almost 27 years, as chairman of the Institute for the Danube Region in Central Europe, IDM, he tried to make this a reality. He had recognized earlier than many that the region was on the move. When we speak of the events at the end of the 1980s, there is often talk of walls, curtains, and fences. We thought to have cut holes, lifted, and teared them down. However, they have returned, physically, virtually, in our minds. So, before the Danube can become the second river of European integration, many steps of reconciliation still have to be taken. Both in the Western Balkans and the Danube Delta, states are stirring up old resentments instead of overcoming them, resulting in the construction of new borders. In the years since the fall of communism, more than 10,000 kilometers of new borders have been created, most of them on the territory of the former Soviet Union. While Vladimir Putin has been trying for years to move these by force, other countries want integration into the EU, with the aim of dismantling borders. But as a prerequisite for dismantling internal borders, the effective protection of external borders is necessary, which in itself can have unfortunate consequences. The Una River, for example, divides the town of Kostainica into two parts. Since Croatia joined the Schengen Agreement on 1st January 2023, the Una became an external EU border, making exchange between the two parts of the city more difficult. And this will continue until Bosnia and Herzegovina also becomes a member. Borders in Europe are not primarily being dismantled, but only shifted. Therefore, European integration paradoxically also creates exclusion on the continent. Stating that we want other countries to join might be a grand gesture, but this is not enough. Bold deeds must follow. For the EU member states, this means that they must be more honest with candidate countries on the issue of enlargement. For the potential candidates, it means that they must also take serious steps towards the accession instead of just pretending to do so. The extension and deepening of areas of competence on the supranational level must finally go hand in hand with the enlargement again, as it was last the case in 2004. At the beginning of European integration, the focus was on economic cooperation. In the majority of accessions, however, the primary goal was to stabilize young democracies. Starting in 1981 with Greece, then Portugal and Spain in 1986, Bulgaria and Romania in 2007, and finally more than 10 years ago, Croatia. However, democratic developments are never linear and certainly not irreversible, which is why we need real security mechanisms at the EU level that must be institutionalized. We should not be afraid of far-reaching changes, for only in this way can the Danube really become the second river of European integration. Perhaps it will then be followed by the Bosporus, the Volga, and maybe even the Thames again. But until then, quite a bit of water is likely to flow from the Black Forest to the Black Sea.